Campaigning in 2015, Justin Trudeau's Liberals promised to build a government as diverse as Canada. That job might have seemed nearly done on day one. Of the 31 ministers sworn in on November 4, 2015, 15 were, famously, women. 5 ministers were visible minorities and 2 others were Indigenous. A cabinet ratio of 48.3% women, 16.1% visible minorities and 6.5% Indigenous comes close to matching a Canadian population that was 50.9% women, 22.3% visible minorities and 4.9% Indigenous. But a Prime Minister and his government are responsible for far more than a few dozen cabinet positions. The cabinet oversees more than 1,500 appointments, including chairs and members of boards, tribunals and crown corporations, deputy ministers, heads of foreign missions, judges and senators. On that much larger scale, progress has been made, but the ideal of a government that looks like Canada is still a ways off. When the government was sworn in, just 34% of federal appointees were women, 4.5% were visible minorities and 3.9% were Indigenous. 2 years later, according to data from the Privy Council Office, 42.8% of appointees are women, 5.6% are visible minorities and 5.8% are Indigenous. In February 2016, the Liberal government announced a new appointment process for boards, agencies, tribunals, officers of Parliament and Crown corporations. It specified diversity as a goal and opened applications to the public. According to the Privy Council Office, 429 appointments were made via that process through December 5, 2017. Of those, 56.6% were women, 11.2% were visible minorities and 9.6% were Indigenous. A total of 579 appointments including deputy ministers, heads of mission and appointments for which requirements are specified in law were made through existing processes. Of those, 43.7% were women, 3.8% were visible minorities and 5.2% were Indigenous. Mr. Trudeau has been more intentional on these issues than his predecessors and has made great progress in opening up the process. He has also clearly made great strides on gender, says Wendy Cuquier, director of Ryerson University's Diversity Institute. But, says Cuquier, the government's efforts toward transparency and equal opportunity need to be accompanied by proactive outreach and recruitment as well as retention strategies in order to address some of the barriers historically disadvantaged groups have faced. Eleanor Coutinaro, press secretary for the Prime Minister, says, "Our aim is to identify high-quality candidates who will help to achieve gender parity and truly reflect Canada's diversity." She says, "We know there is more work to do to achieve these goals, and we continue to do outreach to potential qualified and diverse candidates to encourage them to apply." Rigorous reporting of demographic data across federal appointments could presumably drive change or at least give the government something to answer for, but most of these numbers have not been made public. It is crucial that the government tracks, measures and reports on diversity in all areas, says Sen.